All right, today we're diving into a really critical, kind of behind the scenes challenge facing the US economy. It's a story all about the information that guides these massive billion-dollar decisions and, well, what happens when that information just vanishes into thin air.
So let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're behind the wheel of a giant truck, and that truck is the entire US economy. Suddenly, your whole dashboard just goes dark. The windshield completely fogs over. That's pretty much exactly the situation the Federal Reserve finds itself in right now.
To put it simply, the Fed is in a data drought. All those reliable streams of information they count on to make the right calls, they're drying up, and that is creating a huge problem at a really sensitive time.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it's created this incredibly dangerous information blind spot. The one group responsible for steering our whole economy is suddenly trying to navigate without a map or a GPS. And you have to understand, the stakes here could not be higher. We're talking about decisions that directly affect your mortgage rates, job prospects, the whole nine yards. To get those calls right, they need sharp, up-to-the-minute data. Anything less is a massive gamble with our economy. Okay, so let's break this down. The first piece of this puzzle is pretty public. You've probably seen it in the headlines. We're talking about the government shutdown.
You see, when the government shuts down, it just turns off the tap for official economic data. I mean, key reports that everyone relies on, like the big non-farm payrolls report, which is our best monthly look at jobs, they just stop coming. And that immediately creates this huge fog of uncertainty. Now, just losing the official data is a major headache for sure. It would make the Fed's job way harder on its own. But here's the thing. There is way more to this story. There's a second, much quieter part of this that's making things so much worse. You see, it turns out the Fed had a secret weapon, an ace up its sleeve for exactly this kind of situation. They had a powerful private data set that gave them an incredible advantage. And that secret weapon? It was data from ADP. Yep, the giant payroll company. For years, as a public service, ADP was giving the Fed this special, anonymized data set. It was a total treasure trove of economic information.
And the scale of this data was just immense. We are talking about tracking employment and income for millions and millions of American workers. It gave the Fed this detailed, almost real-time picture of what was happening in the labor market.
So why was this stuff so valuable? Well, first off, it was way more current than the official government reports that only come out once a month. It was also completely anonymized, so privacy was protected. But here's the real kicker. It gave the Fed's economists this crucial independent way to double-check the government's numbers, a reality check, if you will. So, if this data was such a game changer, you've got to be asking, why on earth did it disappear right when the Fed needed it the most? Well, the chain of events is pretty interesting. For years, this quiet, informal arrangement worked perfectly. Then, this past August, a Fed governor named Christopher Waller actually mentioned the data publicly in a speech, and shortly after it was put in the spotlight like that, poof, ADP suspended the data feed. Now, reports are suggesting that the public shout-out might have made ADP a bit uncomfortable. What had been a quiet, behind-the-scenes partnership was suddenly a public matter, and that may have raised some new concerns for the company. For their part, ADP's official line is that they're working with the Fed to improve processes for sharing this information. So that kind of suggests the door isn't locked forever, but it's definitely shut tight for now. So you put all this together and you have a perfect storm of uncertainty for the very people trying to make these critical economic policies. What this really is a devastating double blow. On one side, you have the official government data, gone thanks to the shutdown, and on the other, the Fed's powerful private backup from ADP, also gone. Their primary and their secondary sources of information just vanished at the worst possible moment. So the bottom line is this. The people in charge of keeping our economy on the rails are basically flying with way fewer instruments working, and their view of the road ahead is seriously blocked. And this is not some abstract problem, you know? Without good data on jobs, the Fed is essentially forced to guess when it comes to interest rates. And a wrong guess could easily mean higher mortgage payments for you or businesses not expanding, which creates real economic uncertainty for all of us. And this leaves us with a really critical question. In an age where we are surrounded by data, how is it that the world's most powerful central bank is flying blind?
When all the maps are gone and the view is this foggy, how can anyone possibly be expected to safely steer the economy?